That's what her face did. Hi guys, and welcome to Organized ADHD Chaos. I'm Cindy, and this is the second video in my series, Undiagnosed ADHD in College, where I tell what happened when I went to college and I did not know that I had ADHD. But first, I want to ask you to take a moment and click subscribe down below. So I don't know if you could tell this, if the camera's close enough to see what's going on with my eyes, but my pupils are much larger than usual. And I promise I am not on anything. I went to the eye doctor this morning, and part of the exam was dilating my pupils. And discovered it's not nearly as bad as what I had thought it would be. I don't know where I've even seen it. I think on TV shows. I don't know. I remember an old episode of Facts of Life where Mrs. Garrett had her eyes dilated and she was stumbling around for the rest of the day. It was not like that. Now, granted, close up reading was not so easy right away afterwards for the first hour or so, but even that, not so bad. But if you saw my my vlog, the one where I was running errands, you'll also know that my eye doctor is near Starbucks. And the peppermint mochas are out. So, got myself a peppermint mocha after my appointment. I have to say, the time between November 1st and the new year, I go to Starbucks more than the rest of the year combined, probably, because I just really, really love the peppermint mocha. And, I mean, I have my own peppermint mocha creamer, which is good, but it's not the same. So, getting into it. The last video, which I will provide a link, I talked about going to community college and finishing my first 2 years and being able to start at the university as a junior. So, the fall after I graduated from community college, that's what I did. I started at the university. I was a junior. I was majoring in music education. And I had actually gone there in the spring to see the head of the music department. He was the one that signed us up for our first semester classes. And so he had signed me up for the sophomore level music theory, which, you know, I had taken the freshman level at community college, so that seemed to be the right level for me to be at. But when I actually went to class, it wasn't. It was so far over my head. I had no idea what the teacher was talking about. And so I actually went to the president of the department and asked to switch to the freshman level class. Because of the lack of preparation, I found out over the course of that semester that there was no way I would be able to graduate in 2 years. We had these private voice classes that we took, and I was really at freshman level in that as well. You had to put on, was it a junior or senior recital? I'm not sure, but I knew that there was no way that I would be ready for that the following year. It just was not going to happen. You know, between that and then all the education classes that I needed to take. Academically, I was a junior, but as far as music goes, I was a freshman. So that was a little bit, you know, distressing that I had done 2 years in community college, and then there was still no way, if I stayed in the major I was in, that I would possibly graduate in 2 years. But, you know, that's the way it was going to be. I couldn't really do much at that point unless I changed my major, but I didn't want to do that. So I stayed in the music department and basically started over as a freshman. Now, over the course of that semester, I also took my very first lecture hall class. And if you've never been to a big university, a lecture hall class is where there are anywhere from, 50, 100 plus students in this auditorium-like place where you have seats and you have the side desk thing that you can pull up and fold over. But it's not like a real classroom with a real, it's just not. It's a lecture hall. You're sitting there. The instructor is lecturing, and they got the big screen where notes are showing. And it's just really hard to concentrate in a class like that, especially for somebody who has trouble concentrating anyway. Now this class, it was American history, and I think I fell asleep in this class 3 or 4 times over the course of the semester because, first of all, I was bored in the class. The instructor actually, I just remembered this, he stood up there like a door, meaning one hand was always on the podium, but his left foot always seemed to be taking a step back and a step forward. So he'd be standing here like this. And this was a very hypnotic thing to be watching the entire class. So not only that, but I also had the class right after lunch. Now I had 2 hours between the class I had before lunch and this class. So I would go to my residence hall and eat lunch. And then a friend and I would go watch Days of Our Lives because that was what we watched then. We always watched Days of Our Lives. And so not only had I just eaten, but I had also just spent an hour watching TV. And so I was very drowsy by the time I went to this class. And so yeah, I fell asleep a few times during this class. And I think I wound up with a C in this class, but my other classes, I actually did very well in my other classes, well enough that I was able to finish the semester with a B average. I think it was a 3.0, like exactly right there at a B. And I was so happy with that because I hadn't done that, before. So my second semester started and I had made some friends in the music department that I hung out with sometimes. And this semester I had a class in an even bigger lecture hall. I would say there were at least 300 students in this class. And it was an 8 o'clock class. I am not a morning person. And at this time, it was even harder for me to force myself to be a morning person. By the time I got there, it was hard to get a seat. All of the aisle seats were taken. Most of the other seats were taken, but there was maybe 1 or 2 seats in the middle of a long row. I was going to have to step over 15 people to get to a seat. And I was not going to do that, especially because usually by the time I got there, class had already started. So I wound up sitting on the steps of this lecture hall, like the aisle steps. So you can imagine, how easy it was to pay attention and take notes when you're sitting on the steps, especially when it's a subject that you don't care about. Because even though I had that associate's degree, the education department required this class. So I actually wound up not passing that class. That was, but my music classes were still going really well. And I think I wound up with a high C average that semester, mostly because of the F I got in the huge lecture hall class. And I'd also seen signs about applying to be an RA the following year. And if you were an RA, you got free housing, and that costs quite a bit. And so I wanted to do what I could to contribute because I didn't have a job or anything. So I wasn't really contributing at all to my college expenses. So I wanted to at least do that. But it seemed, doable. Hey, I can do that. So I applied and had to go through an interview process and wound up getting the job. I had to move in about 10 days early, I think, with the other RAs to do our training. And it turned out that it was going to be a lot different than I thought. Yes, we checked students in, checked them out, made sure things weren't going crazy in the building, and arranged for maintenance. But there was a lot more than that. Now, for the music department, for the it was the private vocal lessons that we had to take. We had to go to a certain number of recitals over the course of the semester. And we had these little tickets that we had to take every time we went and get it stamped so that, they knew we were at that recital. And so those recitals were usually on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursday evenings. There were a few on Mondays. There were a few over the weekend, but that was very rare. And to be an RA, we had one mandatory meeting with our building every week, and that was on Wednesday evenings. And that was, the set date. It was going to be on Wednesdays. Okay. Well, we also, each RA, we worked in teams with another RA. So this was Monday through Thursday. One RA out of the team had to be on duty. Well, the other RA, this was his second year, and it was my first year. So he got first pick at the days of the week, and we had our mandatory meetings on Wednesday, so he picked Monday and Wednesday because, he was already going to be there on Wednesday, which, from a logical side made sense, but I was really mad because that meant I was stuck with Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm supposed to be going to these recitals for this class, and now I'm stuck in the residence hall on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I did not like that at all. It actually did make it impossible for me to finish the required recitals for the class because there just weren't enough of them on Mondays and on weekends where I was off duty. Because that's another thing, you alternate a weekend duty, and it was a little bit different. There were fewer RAs on duty over the weekend, so it wasn't like he and I alternate and we were on duty every other weekend. It turned out to be about every third weekend that you were on duty. But, it was a very high stress situation. We were required to provide social programs to the residents, and I don't think most of them really wanted them. I know that my residents didn't really seem to want them. You toss out some food and they'd show up, but it was a lot more work than I thought it would be. And I actually, that semester, started skipping class a lot. I skipped my music theory class almost the entire year. Mostly I went to literature, which surprised me because I didn't want to take that class. It was another one that was required by the education department. I didn't want to take it, but it turns out I loved it. I had a really great teacher, and the book that we used, I actually still have that book. And two of the short stories in that book I still consider to be among my favorite short stories that I've ever read. And I also went to choir. During this time, I also spent a lot of time alone in my room. I didn't go to the dining hall for meals very often. Mostly I ate snack food, mac and cheese, and cereal that I had in my room, or I went to Taco Bell or McDonald's, or I ordered pizza. And so I started to gain weight that semester too. Up until that point, I had never had a weight problem in my life. I had been a healthy weight without really even trying. Just I always stayed at a healthy weight. And during that time, I did start gaining a little bit of weight. Not enough that I couldn't fit into my clothes, but enough that they were very tight. And so, I knew I had gained. I was also drinking a lot at that time. And it was not go out and have a drink. It was binge drinking. And I would do this at least once a week. And I do not recommend doing that. It is not good for you. It is, first of all, it's dangerous because you never know when you're going to take that drink that pushes you over the limit to this is where you pass out or this is where you die, because people can die from drinking too much alcohol. And it's, the point from where you pass out to where you could potentially die is not that big. That's not a very huge difference between those points. So I definitely don't recommend doing it. I never drove after drinking, and I never rode with anybody that had been drinking, but just the binge drinking itself, I consider to be something that was very irresponsible of me. And the thing is, if you have any sort of issue with your moods, with controlling your moods, drinking, I know a lot of people try to self-medicate that way, but drinking is not going to do it. You may feel better in the moment, but alcohol is a depressant. Chances are you will have several days after that drinking where your mood is lower than it otherwise could have been. just because of the alcohol. So that's my PSA. I do not recommend binge drinking, but I was doing that at the time. And finally, I had had enough. I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't stand it anymore. And one afternoon, I called my mom and I was just sobbing that I couldn't take it anymore, that I had to get out of there. I wanted to come home. It was, it was awful. And I thought it was all depression related because I had been diagnosed with depression as a teenager and I was no longer in any sort of treatment, but I thought that the depression had come back with a vengeance and that's what was going on. Now, imagine, this is the first I had mentioned to my mom that I was at all unhappy. So imagine you're at home and you get a call from your child who, though they are an adult, your child is always your child. Your child's away, 4 hours away, I think that's about how far away I was. 4 hours away and sobbing that she is miserable. She can't take it anymore. It's awful. I mean, yeah, that had to be really tough. But she talked to me for a very long time that day. She suggested that I start seeing a therapist at the college. At the time, I was too much of a mess to even find out how to go about doing that. I'm pretty sure that she called the department to find out what I needed to do to sign up for therapy and to get a therapist and, talk me down. Talk me off the getting in my car and just leaving ledge. So I went to therapy for the rest of the semester and I still decided to go ahead and leave college. Not only did I feel like I was in over my head, I was failing at least 2 classes. I realized that I did not want to do music. And there were many reasons for that. One of the main reasons was music was my escape from reality. Music was my escape from my stresses. And I took the thing that I used to escape from my stresses and made it one of my main stressors. That was not good. So at the end of the semester, I moved back in with my parents. Now, how has dropping out of the university affected my life? Well, for years, up until just a few years ago, I felt ashamed and embarrassed to be a dropout. I felt like I was the only person who did not have a bachelor's degree because it seemed like everybody I met had one. So I felt like a failure. I was embarrassed and I felt ashamed. And there were times in my life that I had to deal with degree snobs. Now that's a name that I gave to people who think that they are better than me because they finished and got a bachelor's degree. And I can think of one specific incident that happened a long time ago where I was just meeting somebody and we're talking, getting to know you, small talk, blah, blah, blah. And I think she must have mentioned the town that I went to school in or something. And I said, oh, I went to college there. And she said, oh, I had an ex-boyfriend who went to college there, but he dropped out. So that tells you what kind of person he is. And so I looked her in the eye and I said, oh, I dropped out. What kind of person does that make me? That's what her face did. And then she was just, well, I didn't, the stammering, trying to come up with an excuse why you said the thing you said that turned out to be a very actually hurtful thing to say. And so, but that's the only time in my life, well, one of the few times in my life that I have thought on my feet and been able to say the thing that I wanted to say right when it was appropriate to say it, as opposed to thinking of it a couple hours later and wishing I'd have thought of it in time to say it. So that happened, I would say, about 18 years ago, and I'm still hanging on to that as one of the better comebacks I've ever had in my life. So, that's not the only person who has ever made it seem like they were looking down on me because of the dropping out or, whatever I was doing career-wise or job-wise. But now I actually accept it as something that happened in my life. It does not define me. and it does not define my worth as a person. And I think that's something important to remember, that no matter what you achieve, academically or career-wise, that doesn't define your worth as a person. Okay, who you are, to me, who you are and how you treat people says a lot more about you as a person than any career or academic achievement. While achievements are wonderful, don't get me wrong, I think they're wonderful and definitely something to be proud of. It doesn't define your worth as a person. Your worth as a person has more to do with how you treat people, to me at least, and generally to the people that I choose to spend my time with. So anyway, that's what happened when I went to the university and didn't realize that I had ADHD. Looking back, I am pretty sure that most of the overwhelm was directly related to the ADHD. And I'm also pretty sure that getting myself in over my head with the RA job had to do with the ADHD, because a lot of times we overestimate what we're actually reasonably able to do and, jump in and get in a little over our heads. There will be more videos in this series. I have attempted college since. This university experience is not the end of it. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click like, the little thumbs up guy. And if you really liked it, please click subscribe. That way you can be notified when I upload new videos, and you can either get an email or YouTube will put it on your homepage as suggested videos, or under your subscription tab, you'll see them whenever they're uploaded. And please remember, be kind to yourselves and to each other. I'll see you next week. Bye.